not necessarily reflect those of the advertisers, owners, or management of Pacific Telestations LLC. For comments, opinions, and questions, please email Jess Lujan at jessthebuzz@gmail.com. The Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. Exciting show tonight. Continuing, of course, with my former colleague in the 27th, 28th, and 29th Guam Legislature, former Senator, of course, Rory Respicio. How you doing, man?
Good. Good evening, Senator Jesse, and thank you again for inviting me back.
Good to see you. Looking good. You look as fresh as you did last week.
Okay.
But anyway, this week I want to talk about the 34th Guam Legislature and the different composition with that, and of course what had happened a few weeks ago in regards to these, of course it's almost the very first public controversial situation in regards to the rollback in these pay raises and stuff. And what is your take on that? Because in the very beginning I said, hey, look, okay, maybe it shouldn't have happened that way. But as we moved on, especially the new the senators that got elected, some of them I talked to, I said, you ran knowing that this is now how much you're going to get paid. Are you gonna want to roll that back 30,000? I mean, does it make good business sense that you're going to roll it back, and you're really telling me you're going to do the hard work? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make economical sense. And you're asking me to believe that you're going to make good economic sense while you're in there. So those actions are not indicative of what they're going to do.
In my opinion, there's only one chief architect for this controversy, and there should be only one person that should be tagged as the one who failed to do any attempt to do anything. Because I'm talking about Mike Nicholas, how in the 33rd legislature there was several attempts to roll it back, and I even supported the rollback and also the rollback of the senatorial salaries, because that's what we did in the first term. We cut our salaries by $1,100 a month for 9 months. It was a 27% cut, actually. But in the legislative process, once a bill is passed, once the governor vetoes it or signs it, everybody moves on if it's signed. But once the governor vetoes it and you failed an override, just recognize that the votes are not there and just move on. Move on to other things. But like I said, there were several attempts, and in the final days of the 33rd legislature, the legislature again tried to do these two issues. And Mike Nicholas was very against having another attempt, because he said, oh, the 34th will take care of this. And he made a proclamation that the 34th legislature will do what the 33rd failed to do. And so he kind of implicated and brought along all these new candidates who you said were on the campaign trail. People voted for them knowing what the salary was going to be.
Of course.
So what does Mike do? And it takes him a long time to introduce a bill. He only does it after Senator Frank Guggen introduces the bill. And the first bill that goes on the agenda is a bill to cut the governor, lieutenant governor, the senators, and I believe that's the two of them, right? They leave the mayors out, and then they leave another bill to do all the cabinet members. If the senators really want to cut their salaries, then do one attempt to try to just cut the senator salaries. If that passes, it passes, which it did, but Governor Cabo vetoed it, which was inconsistent to what he also said, where he said, if the legislature wants to cut themselves, I'll be my guest, right? But I guess he had a change of heart.
Well, he had a change of heart, and he was there, and he knows the work that they do, and all that, and it says, hey, look, man, don't try to drown yourself.
And I think that was very admirable for Governor Cabo to do, to say, I'm going to save you from yourself because of whatever you put yourself in. So now you have a bill that if it passes, of course the governor will veto it. There wouldn't be 10 votes. And then you have Mike Nicholas saying he's going to try his version. And if his version fails, he's going to put it on an initiative before the people. So my point is, you're going to have another 2 years with everybody keeping the salary that they promised to give back. Meanwhile, you're going to miss out on an opportunity to work closer with the administration and with other people to get things done. It's just a huge distraction.
And here's the thing, Rory, you know, again, you and I have been in there, and we know how this works as well. And some of the things that I have spoken to some of the senators that will listen, I'll say, hey, you know, you're going to make news if you have all the votes already. If you have your 10 votes, okay? You have your 10 votes or even more than that. If you have 15 or more than 10. That's when you're going to make news, because you know you're going to have a veto override power with that. But, you know, one of the things I said, do you have the votes for it? No, we don't. How many do you have? I think we have 5, 6 maybe. I said, well, where's the news in this? You know, this is going to continue to linger. This is going to continue to linger, and the more it's introduced, the more people are saying, hey, you know, we're fed up with this. You know, it's outdone its usefulness, I think, anymore, right? But you continue, and to me, it's just a continuing, basically fabrication that this is going to happen. Now, introduce it. Okay, don't put it out there unless you've spoken to all your 15 colleagues, and then with the 15 you have at least your 10 that for sure are with you. Now, then that's when you can introduce it and call a special session, basically, go in there and do it, and you could get it done in one day. But you continue to string people on with this situation.
Or put it out there, and if it passes, great. If it doesn't pass, you just gotta move on, right? And if you take a look at the 33rd legislature, every session we've averaged about 20, 25 bills on the agenda. And that was what the people of Guam were paying us for, to work, to just really work hard. This upcoming session, or this past session rather, they had they announced that there was going to be 3 bills on the agenda. And so people have to ask themselves, is that really commensurate to that $85,000 salary, where you have bills on the agenda that are not new ideas? One is to roll back the salaries. They've talked about that so many times. One is to have one health insurance carrier, which they talked about that so many times, even though the legislature said employees should have choice. And Governor Cavo followed on what the legislative mandate was. Now they say, no, go back and only have one. So, and then you have the other one with the raising the smoking age to 21, which you know, I didn't vote for in the last legislature.
I wouldn't vote for it as
because,
well. I mean,
with all due respect to Speaker B.J. Cruz, that bill would have just created the scofflaw. Because how do you now, at the snap of a finger, say if you're 18 to 20 years old and you smoke, you're going to be committing?
Well, here's the thing with me. I mean, if you're going to change the age, let's decide. You know, maybe nationwide or maybe even Guam. Okay, let's decide what age you're an adult. Okay, what age you can do things, right? As an adult, and once we've decided that age, let's not go back and forth. Okay, you're too young for this. You're right age for this. It's consensual sex when you're 16 and things like that. I mean, all these varying ages. All these varying ages. When we have people defend, I mean, one of the things, and I tell you this, and you know my record, I've never voted to increase the drinking age. I would never vote for drinking. I mean, to increase the age for smoking. One of the things, and I tell you this, that enlightened me with all this, when my son wasn't quite 21 yet, and he was not a drinker or a smoker. He said, "Really, you're going to do this?" One of his really good buddies was in, I think, Iran at the time. And he had a leg that was blown off, basically. He came back. He's not quite 21. I think he was just turning 21. He said, "Me, if he came back to Guam here, he was a decorated hero. If he came back to Guam, he really couldn't have a beer, you know." He said, after all he's done, he couldn't have that. I said, "You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. He can do everything else. You know, we can honor him. You know, we can, hey man, praise him, everything like that. But you know, if he's going to go out with his family to celebrate and have a beer, I'm sorry, where's your ID? You're not old enough. You can give up your leg for me, but you're not old enough." So we've decided. And again, I had a dad that died of lung cancer from smoking. Okay, but you know, I'm not in favor of increasing it because I'm thinking now that you're not quite smart to know this. I mean, I think your upbringing and all this and the education program up there, and then at some point, you know, we're not the moral police. I cannot follow Rory around and tell him, you know, at some point you're out on your own. You know what's right and you know what's wrong.
But it's also the, you know, what are the motivations behind these bills? Are these bills being introduced and championed for the greater good, or is it to continue to grind that axe? And, and it just makes for a very unhealthy environment and a very unproductive institution and a community.
And not knowing, again, not knowing, you know, there's no consistency. At some point we're saying, hey, I mean, we're looking at kids. We're going over there and shaking their hands because now they can vote when they're 17 if they're going to be 18 before the election, right? Hey, you're smart enough to do that. You're smart enough to know to read my pamphlets that I give to you. But oh, wait a minute. Oh, when it comes to that, I'm sorry.
But also if you look at that bill, it says if you are 18 to 20 and you need help to stop smoking, you have no choice rather because you can't smoke at that age. Then you can go to the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Agency, but we know what the challenges are with that agency. So I don't know, just the 33rd legislature passed a bill. It was vetoed. They couldn't get an override. Let's see what happens with.
So they're tackling three major bills at this point that have been previously introduced and previously vetoed.
Yeah, and so I wrote one of my columns on, every election we look at the hope of change. And so in this last election, 7 of us weren't re-elected because the voters felt that there should be a significant change and shake-up in the legislature. So after that election is over, this new batch has been instilled. They just have 3 bills on the agenda that are rehashes of the 33rd Guam legislature. And so people have to ask themselves, what kind of change are they really getting?
So I guess it goes to the saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Be right back. I have to take a quick break.